Hello, I'm David Matlin, and on this insight, the AIDS epidemic that continues to ravage Africa. Despite Western efforts to contain its spread, thousands of people still die each year from AIDS. Our I-24 News team traveled to the island of Bussi in Uganda, a place with one of the highest incidents of the disease worldwide. 1 out of 6 people is HIV positive. Our reporters met hundreds of orphan children there whose parents fell victim to the deadly illness, but they also found a ray of hope with an organization of volunteer Israeli doctors who treat AIDS patients and work to convince the locals to get tested and get medical care. Well, here's the Island of AIDS Orphans, a report by Tami Harel. Bussi Island, Uganda. One of the many islands scattered on Lake Victoria in Africa, and one with the largest hotbeds of AIDS in the world. 16% of the island's population has AIDS. 1 person in 6 carries the virus, and 1 out of 3 babies is born HIV positive. As a result of this plague, hundreds of orphanages have been built in Uganda. It's hard to realize that almost all of these children's parents have died of AIDS.
I came here purposely when I lost my dad. Most of the children here, they came here when their parents died of AIDS. Many of the people in this island suffer because of AIDS. It's too much.
It was a terrible life because the parents had died because of HIV. No one could hope, no one could say anything. When Drake came, they got us from there and they brought us here.
I grew up like that. My father had 14 children. We used to sleep on the floor. So through that compassion, I did not want to see other children suffer the way I grew up.
Drake Kanabu, whom these young orphans call Papa, is their guardian angel. He picked them up one by one in the neighboring islands after the death of their parents and then brought them back here to this shelter by the shores of Lake Victoria.
This is the area for HIV, AIDS. Because of the fishermen, they just come in one place, do their own thing, and then spread the HIV and go to other islands, another island, another island, another island. So you could see a lot of orphans, a lot of death, and hopeless people. And that's why we came up with the facility here to take care, in particular, the orphans.
Today, the children of the orphanage are especially excited. They're expecting visitors they know well, the Israeli team. Tito the clown and Professor Dan Engelhardt also work together at the Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem, where they're from. Hello. Tito cheers the children up while Professor Engelhardt treats them. Hello, Tito. When Engelhardt decided to create the Art Joy Love Association for AIDS-infected children in Africa, he called upon the clowns.
I saw that there was a need not only for ART treatment, that's antiretroviral therapy, they needed much more. Therefore, we called the program Art, Joy and Love. We gave them ART medicine and also joy and love.
The Art Joy Love Association sends Israeli volunteers to orphanages and medical centers in Uganda and to Ethiopia. Doctors, nurses, clowns, but also young volunteers who want to help those in need.
Those who join us are only those who can hug children with HIV. Those who can't cannot come with us. First of all, they must be able to hug children. This is what they need, a hug and love.
Professor Engelhardt himself comes several times a year. This time he's come for only 6 days as his schedule is busy. Above all, he's curious to see how the medical center he helped create is coming along. Until last year, no medical services were available on the Ugandan islands. Those who were sick had to seek treatment in Entebbe or Kampala. Often patients gave up at the cost of their lives.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
How are things?
Things are okay. we are getting ready for the clinic day. We're even going to circumcise.
Yeah.
in case there
So we're going to have a very hectic day today. Okay, so later we'll see how many came until now, how many positive.
Yes.
I had some reports.
Yes.
You do excellent job.
4-year-old Elineo arrived at the medical center today accompanied by his grandmother. His mother has AIDS and cannot care for him.
No ear problems?
No. Taina chintu chona mato. Taina buze.
The young Elineo is also HIV positive. His mother did not want him to receive medication, but his grandmother realized in time that if he was not treated, he would die.
Mugamba say. He has been getting used to the medication. Yeah, he has no problem in swallowing the tablets. He eats well, he plays.
She refused to declare herself defeated and took Elineo under her wing. Recently, she's had him treated against the virus. In the adjoining room, Sharon, 16, is bedridden. She gave birth at home a few days ago.
So before delivery, she was fine.
You have vitamin K to give to the child?
Yeah, we gave.
You gave. Good. No, it's not very.
It was only when she arrived at the medical center that she found she was HIV positive.
Can we examine the child? It not looks infected here. That's good. Okay, can I listen to the lungs? Tell her to.
Professor Engelhardt now fears that Sharon may have developed a severe uterine infection and also that the baby, who's not been named yet, is HIV positive.
Leg, but it can be normal this age.
He gives treatment instructions to the local staff and to Dr. Tami Harel, an Israeli doctor who just arrived in Uganda.
There is situations where you continue with IV treatment.
Reut moved here with her husband Eitan and their 1.5-year-old son Eyal. After completing their medical studies in Israel, the couple decided to come here as volunteers, but they soon discovered that their task would be even more difficult than they ever imagined.
There is a big difference between what in the medicine in Israel and what we can offer them here, especially as far as means of treatment and diagnosis are concerned. The basics, such as blood tests, which we do right and left, are non-existent here.
It's very frustrating to come and treat asthma without any inhalation device. One is very limited in what can be done.
Moses, 14 years old, arrived early this morning with a severe asthma attack.
He came in 6 o'clock in the morning with heavy breathing, difficulty of completing sentences. They don't have any inhalation. His pulse is a bit slowed down to around 110, but now it's 85, 86.
Our reporter hurries to give him his inhaler. However, another problem arises. How does one use it? After several unsuccessful attempts to teach Moses how to use an inhaler, Tito saves the day and then shows the important role that a clown can play in medicine.
Okay.
Okay, one.
Okay.
And
Close enough.
good. Give, chip. Hey, I'm a man. Good.
Another one.
Another one. By yourself. Hey. Good.
Good.
In a few hours, Tito and Professor Engelhardt will return to Israel, but before that, they must accomplish their most important mission. They board a small wooden boat and sail to the neighboring island of Kachanga. The living conditions at Kachanga are considered the worst in the country, with the highest rates of people with AIDS and abandoned children. The rate of AIDS incidence in Kachanga is especially high because of the lack of information about the disease. The locals do not know how to protect themselves, and those affected don't know that there's even a treatment. This is precisely what the Israeli team has come to change. Tito draws the attention of children and adults so as to gather them to the center of the island. Professor Engelhardt and Drake will then get their message across.
Remember my request to put emphasis on pregnant women.
Yeah, pregnant women, because too much.
We can decrease the number of children with AIDS.
Yes.
Citizens of Kachanga, we came here with an Israeli doctor's delegation to tell you that from now on, you do not need to go to Entebbe or Kampala to get medical treatment. You just need to take a boat and come to Rafah Hospital on Bussi Island. Mamas, when you are pregnant, it's important to do an HIV test to have a free HIV-born baby. For those who got sick from AIDS come and get the ART drugs, don't die from AIDS.
Chris and Percy also accompanied us to Kachanga. They were born there, lost their parents there, and are victims of AIDS and are among the multitude of abandoned children. For them, it's not a simple trip, it's a painful reminder of their past that they managed to escape.
This is the home where I used to live. If I see the children like this one, I just see how I lived to be like him, because I feel having a desire to come back and I help my brothers and sisters. Yeah.
A new day dawns on the island of Bussi. For children of the orphanage, it's time for school. At the medical center, Moses feels better and is preparing to return home. But Sharon and her baby must remain hospitalized. Percy and Chris continue to dream of a better future. Reut, Eitan, and Eyal slowly adapt to their new environment. As for Tito and Professor Engelhardt, the time has come to return to Israel. But the link forged between Israelis and Ugandans will mark a turning point in the life of each of them, young and old. After this journey, both the Ugandans and Israelis will have learned something valuable from each other. Joined by Tami in the studio. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, David.
So first I must ask you, we see 16%, 1 out of 6 people on these islands sick with HIV. Why and how is it so bad in this region?
It really is an amazing statistic. Just for comparison, in most Western countries, the percentage of AIDS patients and carriers are approximately 0.005% of the population. In Uganda itself, not including the islands, it's about 8%. So why are there such high percentages on the islands like Bussi and Kachanga? I'd give 2 answers. First of all, there is a huge lack of awareness. People who think that AIDS equals death. I mean, that a person infected with HIV or AIDS has a death sentence. They do not understand that A, you can prevent the disease, and B, once you've been tested and found to be a carrier or AIDS patient, as we in the West, you can take medication and live with it for many years. The second element that exists on the Ugandan islands is that most of the men are fishermen. They make their living from fishing. These fishermen move from island to island, often have unprotected sex with local prostitutes on the islands, and that's how they end up transporting the virus from island to island without any control.
Well, the organization that we see, Art, Joy, Love, of doctors here, are their activities actually making a difference?
I'll give you a statistic. A year and a half ago, this organization, the one we saw in the film, helped establish the medical center Rafah. This medical center, until it was erected, there was no medical care on any of the islands. They had to travel as far as Entebbe or Kampala, which is a very large distance. When they opened the medical center, the percentage of patients was 18% of the population of the islands. Today, it gets to 16%. That may not seem like much, but that's a lot of people that have actually been saved from certain death. How do they do it? First of all, they ensure that the medical center has enough AIDS drugs. They regularly bring in Israeli doctors to teach the local Ugandan doctors treatment plans, how to help these patients. They constantly bring in Israeli volunteers, doctors, nurses, medical clowns, as we just saw, social workers, in order to help, both medically and psychologically, all of their patients. And eventually they managed to bring down the number of patients. I asked Professor Engelhardt if he was more optimistic or pessimistic. He said to me, it's true that our organization is only one drop, but a drop and another drop will ultimately bring change. So we actually left there feeling optimistic.
Well, certainly nice for us to end the story on an optimistic note here. Thank you, Tami Harel, for bringing us this really touching story.
Thank you.
And thank you for being with us here on Inside Magazine. I'm David Matlin. We'll see you again next week at the same time.